The smoke from the massive explosion began to clear, but the hero did not appear. The blue light of the spirit bomb had promised victory, yet the nightmare remained. Gohan stood on a trembling cliff, his eyes wide and stinging from the dust. He waited for the orange GI. He waited for his father to walk out of the crater with a tired smile and a thumbs up. But the wind only carried the smell of burning sulfur and ozone. There was no laughter. There was no familiar energy signal. There was nothing. The strongest fighter in the universe was simply gone. The silence that followed was heavier than any gravity. It pressed down on Gohan's chest until he could barely breathe. Then came the sound that froze everyone's blood. It was a cough, a wet, hacking cough that turned into a low, rasping chuckle. From the deep crater, a purple tail lashed out and slapped the scorched ground. Frieza stepped forward. The tyrant was battered. One eye was swollen shut, the tip of his tail was missing, and his body was covered in burns. But he was standing. He was alive. He looked at the empty spot where Goku had been standing just moments before. Frieza spat on the ground and wiped a streak of purple blood from his lip. His energy was lower than before, but his rage was rising like a tidal wave. He raised a hand, pointing a single finger directly at Gohan. Gohan felt his knees unlock. He wanted to scream, but his voice was stuck in his throat. Krillin was beside him, shaking so hard his teeth clicked together. They had thrown everything they had at the monster. Goku had given his life for that final attack. And it was not enough. The plan had failed. Hope had failed. A beam of red death energy gathered at Frieza's fingertip. Run. The voice in Gohan's head was Piccolo's. It was loud and desperate. Do not freeze. Move your legs. Grab Krillin and go to the ship. Now! The beam fired. It tore through the air with a high-pitched screech. Piccolo threw himself in front of the boys. The blast slammed into the Namekian's shoulder, spinning him around and knocking him into the dirt. He roared in pain, but scrambled back up, grabbing Gohan by the back of his shirt. He threw the boy toward the nearby spaceship. He shouted at Krillin to start the engine. There was no time to mourn. There was no time to check for a pulse. If they stayed for one more second, they would join Goku in the oblivion. They scrambled into the white pod. The door hissed shut just as Frieza launched a massive ball of energy at them. The ship shuddered violently as the blast clipped the landing gear. Alarms blared inside the cockpit. They shot up into the dark space, leaving the dying green world behind. Gohan pressed his face against the cold glass. He watched Namek glow brighter and brighter. The planet was unstable. Magma was tearing through the crust. Silence filled the ship. Vegeta was in the corner, arms crossed, staring at the floor with eyes full of shock. He was not shaking from fear, but from a cold realization. The low-class clown had failed. The Super Saiyan legend was a lie. And now, the Emperor of the Universe was still alive. Frieza was alive, and he knew where they lived. He would heal. He would come for them. He would come for Earth. Gohan looked at his hands. They were small and trembling. He was the son of Earth's greatest defender, but now he was just a scared child in a metal box, drifting through the stars. The universe had just lost its only shield. The nightmare was not over. It had just begun. The journey back to Earth was a silent nightmare inside the metal ship. The hum of the engine was the only sound for days. Gohan sat in the corner of the main room, his knees pulled up to his chest. He stared at the blank metal wall without blinking. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the red beam piercing the dust. He saw the empty crater. He felt the energy of his father vanish like a candle blown out by a storm. There was no body to bury. There was no goodbye. Just a sudden, violent end to the man who was supposed to be invincible. Gohan did not cry anymore. He had run out of tears hours after they left the burning remains of Namek. Now, he just felt cold. Piccolo stood near the window, watching the stars streak by. His arms were crossed, and his face was grim. He had fused with Nail, a warrior of Namek, and he felt the loss of his home planet deep in his soul. Namek was gone. The Dragon Balls were gone. The hope of wishing back their friends was gone. Tien, Gyotsu, Yamcha, and now Goku. They were all trapped in the other world forever. Piccolo looked at Gohan and felt a spike of anger. It was not anger at the boy, but anger at himself. He had been too weak. He had arrived on Namek promising to help, but in the end, he had only been able to run away. He was a warrior, a demon king reborn. Yet he had fled like a frightened animal. Vegeta sat in the pilot's chair, though the ship was on autopilot. He did not look at the others. He stared out into the black void of space with a look of intense focus. Inside his mind, Vegeta was screaming. The prince of all Saiyans was shaking with a rage he could barely control. Kakarot was dead. The low-class fool had actually achieved a power that rivaled Frieza, something Vegeta had chased for his entire life, and he had still lost. The legend of the Super Saiyan was supposed to be the ultimate power. It was supposed to be the thing that ended Frieza's reign. But Kakarot had failed. If a Super Saiyan could not kill Frieza, then what chance did Vegeta have? He clenched his fist until the leather of his glove creaked. He was the strongest Saiyan left in the universe now. The title fell to him by default. It tasted like ash. He was the king of a graveyard. Vegeta spun his chair around and glared at the group. He looked at Krillin, who was sleeping fitfully on a bench, and then at Gohan. Vegeta's voice cut through the silence like a knife. He told them to stop looking so pathetic. He said that Kakarot died because he was soft. He said that Kakarot had the power to win, but he lacked the killer instinct. He had tried to spare Frieza, and that mercy had gotten him killed. Vegeta stood up and walked toward Gohan. He loomed over the boy. He told Gohan that crying would not bring his father back. He said that Frieza was still out there. The monster was alive. Vegeta knew Frieza's biology better than anyone. Frieza could survive in the vacuum of space. He could survive losing limbs. Unless every cell was destroyed, the tyrant would return. And when he did, he would come to Earth. Piccolo stepped between Vegeta and Gohan. He growled at the prince to back off. He said the boy had just lost his father and did not need a lecture on Saiyan pride. Vegeta scoffed and turned away. He said he did not care about the boy's feelings. He cared about survival. He told them that when they landed on Earth, the alliance was over. He would take the spaceship and find a place to train. He would unlock the power that Kakarot had failed to master. He would become the true Super Saiyan, not by being a soft-hearted hero, but by becoming a ruthless warrior. He warned them to stay out of his way. The ship finally entered Earth's atmosphere. The turbulence shook the cabin, waking Krillin up with a start. He looked around in panic, thinking they were under attack again. When he realized they were home, his shoulders slumped. Home. It should have been a happy moment. But the blue sky of Earth felt wrong without Goku there to see it. They landed in the backyard of Capsule Corp. The landing gear crushed the green grass. The engines whined down and went silent. The door hissed open, letting in the smell of fresh air and flowers. It was a stark contrast to the smell of sulfur and death on Namek. Bulma's father, Dr. Briefs, was there to greet them with his cat on his shoulder. He waved cheerfully, not knowing the horror they carried. Bulma ran out of the house, her blue hair bouncing. She had been waiting for days, tracking the ship's signal. She stopped when she saw them walk down the ramp. She saw Piccolo. She saw Gohan. She saw Krillin carrying Vegeta, who was still injured, but refused help now that they were on the ground. She looked past them, waiting for the tall man with the messy black hair. She waited for Goku to walk out, scratching his head and asking for food. but the ramp remained empty. Bulma looked at Krillin's face. She saw the way Gohan was staring at his feet. She covered her mouth with her hands. The news broke them. Telling Chi-Chi was the hardest thing Gohan ever had to do. They did not have a body to show her. They just had a story of a battle on a dying planet. Chi-Chi did not scream. She just sat down on the grass, her eyes wide and empty. She held Gohan tightly, burying her face in his shoulder. She had always feared this day. She had always hated the fighting. Now, the fighting had taken her husband away forever. Master Roshi stood by silently, his sunglasses hiding his eyes. He knew that the world had just become a much more dangerous place. The pillar of strength that held up the peace was gone. Days turned into weeks. The grief was heavy, but the fear was heavier. Vegeta did not stay at Capsule Corp. He demanded Doctor. Briefs billed him a gravity chamber immediately. He remembered that Kakarot had trained in 100 times gravity on his way to Namek. Vegeta demanded 300 times gravity. He pushed himself until his bones cracked. He pushed himself until he was coughing up blood on the metal floor. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He only trained. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Frieza laughing. He saw the death beam. He felt the humiliation of crying in the dirt while Kakarot fought his battle. Never again. He would rather die in the gravity chamber than face Frieza as a weakling again. Meanwhile, far away in the cold darkness of space, a massive ship drifted through the debris field of what used to be Namek. It was a spider-like vessel, huge and terrifying. It belonged to King Cold, the father of Frieza. His soldiers scanned the area, searching for any sign of the royal heir. The scanners beeped. They found a faint life signature floating among the asteroids. It was small and weak, but it was there. A recovery pod was launched. It scooped up the broken remains of the tyrant. When they brought Frieza on board, the medics gasped in horror. He was missing his lower body. One arm was gone. Half of his face was blown away. But his eye was open. It stared at them with a hatred so intense that the weaker soldiers fainted. Frieza was put into a healing tank, but the damage was too severe for simple regeneration. The scientists told King Cold that his son would die without immediate cybernetic reconstruction. King Cold looked at his broken son and gave the order. Make him stronger. Make him a machine if you must. The surgery was a torture session that lasted for weeks. Frieza was awake for all of it. He refused anesthesia. He wanted to feel the pain. He wanted to burn the pain into his memory so he could unleash it 1,000 times over on the monkeys who did this to him. Metal replaced flesh. Wires replaced nerves. A mechanical tail was fused to his spine. A robotic eye replaced the one he had lost. When Frieza finally stepped out of the operating room, he was a monstrosity of cold steel and purple skin. He flexed his mechanical claw. The power hummed through his new body. He was stronger than before. The cybernetics had increased his durability and his energy output. King Cold suggested they take time to test the new parts. He suggested they rebuild the Empire's forces before hunting down the surviving Saiyans. Frieza killed the advisor who agreed with his father. He blasted the man into dust with a casual wave of his hand. Frieza did not want to wait. He did not want to test. He wanted blood. He told his father that they were going to Earth immediately. He knew where the Saiyans lived. He had heard the transmission coordinates from the Saiyans' pod. He knew the location of the blue planet. He would go there, and he would not just kill them. He would make them watch as he destroyed their world piece by piece. He would find that boy, the son of Goku, and he would make him suffer for every second Frieza had spent drifting in the void. Back on Earth, the peace was fragile. 6 months had passed since the explosion of Namek. Gohan had not gone back to his studies. Chi-Chi had tried to force him, but for the first time in his life, Gohan refused. He told his mother that books would not save them when the bad men came back. He told her that his father was gone, so he had to be the one to protect her. Chi-Chi cried, but she did not stop him. She saw the look in his eyes. It was not the look of a child anymore. It was the look of a soldier. Piccolo took Gohan to the wastelands. They trained every day from sunrise to sunset. Piccolo did not go easy on him. He beat Gohan down, blasting him with energy, forcing him to dodge, to fight, to think. Piccolo knew that Gohan had a hidden power. He had seen it on Namek when Gohan attacked Frieza in a rage. That power was their only wild card. Vegeta was strong, but Vegeta was selfish. If the battle turned bad, Vegeta might flee or make a mistake out of pride. But Gohan fought for love. Gohan fought to protect. That made him dangerous, but it also made him vulnerable. Piccolo tried to harden the boy's heart. He told Gohan to stop thinking about his father. Goku was dead. The past was dead. Only the fight mattered. One afternoon, while they were sparring near a waterfall, the sky began to darken. It was not a storm. The animals in the forest went silent. The birds stopped singing. A heavy pressure descended on the planet. It was a sensation of pure evil that made the air feel thick and oily. Piccolo froze mid-punch. His eyes widened. He recognized that energy. It was cold, sharp, and massive. It felt like a nightmare he had just woken up from. Gohan felt it too. He dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. He knew that feeling. It was the feeling of death. "It can't be," Gohan whispered, his voice trembling. "He died. We saw the planet explode." Piccolo looked up at the sky. He survived. And he's not alone. There's another power with him, something even bigger. At Capsule Corp, the gravity chamber deactivated. The door hissed open and Vegeta stepped out. He was drenched in sweat, his muscles pumping. He looked up at the sky, his face twisting into a mask of horror and disbelief. He sensed it. The tyrant had returned. And he was here. Right now. There was no warning. There was no 3-year waiting period like the boy from the future would have warned them about in another timeline. There was no Trunks coming to save them. Trunks was currently a baby in Bulma's arms inside the house. There was no Super Saiyan Goku to catch the blast. Vegeta fell to his knees. For the first time since he was a child, he felt true despair. He was not ready. He had gotten stronger, yes. He had surpassed his limits. But this energy he felt from space. It was leagues above him. Frieza had come back stronger, and he had brought help. They were going to die. The sky tore open as a massive ship descended through the clouds. It was huge, casting a shadow over the entire northern district. It did not land gently. It crushed a mountain range as it touched down, sending a shockwave that rattled cities hundreds of miles away. The hatch opened. Steam hissed out. 2 figures floated out of the ship. One was tall, wearing a cape and horns, radiating a calm, kingly power. The other was smaller, made of metal and hate. Major Frieza looked at the green landscape of Earth. He took a deep breath, savoring the fresh air. He smiled, his mechanical jaw clicking. "So this is Earth," Frieza said, his voice amplified by his robotic throat. "Such a pretty little planet. It'll make a beautiful firework." He raised his hand. He did not wait for the heroes to arrive. He did not wait for a monologue. He simply pointed a finger at the nearest city, North City, which was visible in the distance. A thin beam of death shot from his finger. It crossed the miles in an instant. In the distance, a mushroom cloud rose up, silent at first, then followed by a thunderous roar. Millions of lives were extinguished in a single second. "That was for the warm-up," Frieza laughed. "Soldiers, find the Saiyans. Bring them to me. I want to hear them scream before I blow this rock to dust." Gohan and Piccolo stood on the cliff, watching the smoke rise from the destroyed city. The shock of the attack snapped something inside Gohan. He did not freeze this time. He did not shake. The image of the city burning merged with the image of his father dying. A low growl started in his throat. His hair spiked up, flickering with gold for a brief second before fading back to black. "We have to go," Gohan said. His voice was different. It was deeper. "We have to kill him." Piccolo looked at his student. He saw the change. The boy was terrified, but the terror had turned into fuel. "Stay close to me, Gohan. Do not attack alone. We need Vegeta. We need everyone." They took off, flying at full speed toward the landing site. Krillin, Tien, Yamcha, and Kyotsu were already moving. They all sensed the horror. They knew this was a suicide mission. Without Goku, they were walking into a slaughter. But they had no choice. There was nowhere to run. Earth was the final battleground. As they flew, Vegeta joined them. He did not say a word. He did not look at them. He just flew with a grim determination. He had made a choice. He would not die on his knees. If he was going to die today, he would die fighting. He would show Frieza that a Saiyan prince did not beg. But deep down, Vegeta knew the math. Frieza was stronger than on Namek. King Cold was nearly as strong as Frieza. And the Z fighters? They were ants fighting gods. The group landed on a rocky plateau facing the ship. Frieza and King Cold were waiting. Frieza's mechanical eyes zoomed in on them. He scanned the group and frowned. "Where is he?" Frieza asked, his voice cold. "Where is the Super Saiyan? Where is Son Goku?" "He's dead," Vegeta said, stepping forward. "You killed him on Namek." Frieza blinked, and then he threw his head back and laughed. It was a jagged, metallic sound. "I did? I wasn't sure. The explosion was so messy. Well, that is a pity. I wanted to kill him again. I suppose you monkeys will have to do." King Cold crossed his arms. "Are these the ones, son? They look incredibly fragile." "They are," Frieza said, "but they are slippery. Kill the bald ones first. Save the prince and the brat for me." The soldiers rushed forward, hundreds of them. The Z fighters took their stances. There was no banter. There was no tournament rule. This was a war for survival. With the first clash of energy, the sound of battle joining the screams of a dying city. The nightmare had come home. The soldiers swarmed like locusts. Hundreds of them poured over the rocky ridges, firing blasters and shouting war cries. Yamcha was the first to move. He leaped into the air, his spirit ball forming in his palm. He guided the energy sphere through the crowd, knocking soldiers aside like bowling pins. Tien and Chiaotzu fought back to back, Tien's third eye scanning for threats, while Chiaotzu used his telekinesis to freeze enemies in mid-air, allowing Tien to strike them down with precision chops. Krillin unleashed a scatter of energy blasts, clearing a path through the infantry. For a moment, it looked like a battle they could win. The soldiers were weak. They were nothing compared to the elites on Namek. The humans felt a surge of adrenaline. They were holding the line. But Frieza was just watching. He hovered a few feet off the ground, his arms crossed over his chest, his tail swishing lazily behind him. He did not look impressed. He looked bored. He tapped his mechanical finger against his arm. King Cold sat on a large rock he had carved into a makeshift throne, sipping wine from a glass he had brought from the ship. He yawned. The disparity between the frantic struggle of the Earthlings and the casual indifference of the tyrants was sickening. Vegeta ignored the soldiers. He did not waste his energy on trash. He stood still, his eyes locked on Frieza. He was analyzing the cyborg's energy signature. It was strange. The organic parts felt familiar, pulsing with that same disgusting evil. But the mechanical parts were cold and void of spirit energy. It made Frieza hard to track. One moment, he felt like a roaring fire. The next, like a block of ice. Vegeta clenched his teeth. He had to strike first. He had to strike hard. With a roar that shook the plateau, Vegeta exploded into motion. He ignored the strategy Piccolo had suggested. He flew straight past the soldiers, the shockwave of his passage throwing them into the air. He aimed a glowing fist directly at Frieza's face. Frieza did not dodge. He simply tilted his head to the side. Vegeta's fist grazed the metal cheek plate, creating a shower of sparks. Vegeta spun in the air, bringing his other leg down for a heel drop. Frieza caught Vegeta's ankle with his mechanical hand. The grip was like a vice. Frieza smiled. "Hello, Prince. You have gotten faster, but not fast enough." Frieza slammed Vegeta into the ground. The impact cratered the solid rock. Before Vegeta could recover, Frieza dragged him through the dirt and tossed him into the air. Frieza vanished, reappearing above Vegeta, and sledgehammered him back down with his tail. Vegeta hit the ground with a wet thud, coughing up blood. He scrambled to his feet, wiping his mouth. He was furious. He fired a Gallic gun, the purple beam screaming toward the tyrant. Frieza held up one hand. He caught the blast. He caught Vegeta's signature attack with a single open palm. He squeezed, and the energy dissipated into harmless smoke. "Is that it?" Frieza asked, descending slowly. "I traveled across the galaxy for this? My father is watching, Vegeta. Try to be entertaining." Piccolo saw Vegeta falter. He knew they couldn't wait. "Now!" he shouted to Gohan. Piccolo and Gohan burst from their cover. They did not attack Frieza. They attacked the space between Frieza and Vegeta, creating a wall of dust and energy to buy the prince a second to breathe. Piccolo removed his weighted turban and cape, his power flaring up. He was stronger than he was on Namek. Fusing with Nail had given him a permanent boost, and the training with Gohan had sharpened his skills. He moved with a speed that surprised even King Cold. Piccolo stretched his arms, wrapping them around Frieza's mechanical torso to bind him. "Gohan, hit him with everything," Piccolo roared. Gohan charged a Masenko, the yellow light illuminating his terrified face. He poured all his anger, all his loss into the ball of light above his head. "Masenko, ha!" The beam fired, striking Frieza squarely in the chest. The explosion was massive. Smoke billowed out, covering the area. The Z-fighters paused. The soldiers stopped shooting, looking at the cloud of smoke. Did they get him? Did the combined might of a Namekian and a Saiyan hybrid scratch the monster? The smoke cleared. Frieza was standing there, unmoving. Piccolo's arms were still wrapped around him. Frieza looked down at the arms binding him, then up at Gohan. There was not a scratch on his armor. The blast had merely polished his metal chest. Frieza chuckled. He expanded his energy, a sharp, jagged aura that sliced through the air. The force of it shattered Piccolo's hold. Piccolo screamed as his arms were wrenched away, muscles tearing. Frieza spun and planted a kick into Piccolo's gut, sending the Namekian flying into the side of the ship. Then Frieza looked at Gohan. The boy froze. The eyes were the same. The cold, red eyes of the nightmare. "You look just like him," Frieza whispered, vanishing. He reappeared behind Gohan. "I hate it." Frieza backhanded Gohan. It wasn't a full-power strike, but it was enough to snap the boy's neck back and send him crashing through a ridge of stone. Gohan lay in the rubble, dazed, his vision swimming. Krillin screamed Gohan's name and abandoned the fight with the soldiers. He flew toward Frieza, summoning a Destructo Disc. "Frieza!" he yelled, throwing the razor-sharp disc of energy. It hummed through the air, aiming for Frieza's neck. Frieza didn't dodge. He watched the disc approach. At the last second, he raised his mechanical arm. The disc hit the reinforced alloy of his forearm. Sparks flew. The screech of energy grinding against alien metal was deafening. The disc struggled to cut, biting a few inches into the steel, but then it shattered. Frieza shook his arm. There was a shallow gash in the metal, leaking hydraulic fluid. "Annoying," Frieza muttered. He pointed a finger at Krillin. "No!" Tien shouted. Tien appeared in the path of the blast, crossing his arms. The death beam punched through Tien's forearms and pierced his shoulder. Tien collapsed, groaning in agony. Yamcha rushed in to pull Tien to safety, firing a spirit ball to distract Frieza. King Cold stood up from his throne. "Frieza, stop playing with your food. We have a schedule. Destroy the planet and let us leave." "One moment, father," Frieza called back, not taking his eyes off the terrified Earthlings. "I want to break them first. Physical pain is fleeting. I want to see the hope die in their eyes before I turn them to ash." Vegeta rose from the crater. His armor was cracked. His pride was shattered. He looked at the scene. Tien was down. Piccolo was buried in debris. Gohan was barely conscious. Krillin and Yamcha were trembling. And Frieza was pristine. The gap was impossible. It wasn't just power. It was the cruelty. It was the absolute certainty of dominance. Vegeta realized that his training in the gravity chamber meant nothing. He was still the dirt beneath Frieza's feet. But he was a Saiyan. He could not run. The instinct to fight, even in the face of death, overrode his logic. Vegeta screamed, a sound of pure frustration, and charged again. He flared his energy to its absolute maximum, burning his life force for speed. He began to barrage Frieza with punches and kicks, moving faster than the eye could see. He hit Frieza in the face, the gut, the knee. He poured every ounce of his soul into the assault. Frieza allowed it. He stood there, letting Vegeta exhaust himself. He took the punches like a mountain takes rain. When Vegeta finally slowed down, gasping for air, his knuckles bloody from hitting the metal armor, Frieza sighed. "Are you done?" Frieza asked. Frieza's tail lashed out, wrapping around Vegeta's throat. He lifted the prince off the ground. Vegeta clawed at the tail, his legs kicking uselessly. Frieza brought Vegeta's face close to his own. "You will never be a Super Saiyan, Vegeta," Frieza hissed. "You are nothing. Just a monkey playing dress-up." Frieza tightened his grip. Vegeta's vision began to fade. He choked, the pressure crushing his windpipe. "Let him go!" The shout came from Yamcha. The desert bandit, usually the first to doubt, saw his friends dying, and found a reserve of courage he didn't know he had. He knew that he couldn't beat Frieza, but he could distract him. Yamcha charged a Kamehameha. It was small compared to Goku's, but it was bright. He fired it at Frieza's face. Frieza didn't even blink. He swatted the beam away with his free hand, deflecting it into a nearby mountain. But the distraction worked. He loosened his grip on Vegeta slightly. Vegeta gasped, sucking in air. Frieza turned his robotic eye toward Yamcha. "You Earthlings are like insects. Buzzing, biting, annoying." Frieza dropped Vegeta. He vanished. Yamcha didn't even see him move. One moment, Frieza was holding Vegeta. The next, Frieza was standing directly in front of Yamcha. Yamcha's eyes went wide. He tried to step back, but he was frozen by the sheer pressure of Frieza's aura. Frieza placed his hand on Yamcha's chest. Goodbye. A pulse of energy, silent and invisible, shot from Frieza's palm. It exited through Yamcha's back. Yamcha gasped, his eyes losing focus. He fell to his knees, then face planted into the dirt. He didn't move. His energy signal vanished instantly. "Yamcha!" Puar, who was hiding near the ship, screamed. Krillin stared at the body of his friend. It was happening again. Just like with Nappa. Just like on Namek. They were dying one by one. The anger that had triggered Goku's transformation bubbled inside Krillin, but he was not a Saiyan. His anger brought only tears and a feeling of helpless weakness. Frieza turned back to the others, wiping his hand as if he had touched something filthy. One down. Who is next? Perhaps the bald one? Or maybe the three-eyed one who was bleeding out? Suddenly, the ground began to shake. It wasn't an earthquake. It was power. Pure, unadulterated rage. Piccolo pulled himself out of the debris. He saw Yamcha dead. He saw Tien bleeding. He saw Vegeta defeated. and he saw Gohan standing up. Gohan was not crying. His head was down. His fists were clenched so tight that blood dripped from his palms. The ground around his feet cracked and floated into the air. The air around him shimmered with heat. "You," Gohan whispered. Frieza looked at the boy, amused. "Me? You hurt my friends," Gohan said, his voice rising in pitch. The black hair on his head stood up on end. A golden aura flickered around him, violent and unstable. It wasn't the calm, flowing gold of Goku. It was jagged, like lightning. "You killed my dad. You killed Yamcha. I won't let you." Gohan exploded. A pillar of energy shot into the sky, clearing the clouds. The power was immense. It was far beyond what he had shown on Namek. It pushed the Frieza Force soldiers back, blowing them away like leaves. Even King Cold raised an eyebrow, shielding his wineglass from the dust. "Oh?" King Cold muttered. "That one has bite." Frieza narrowed his eyes. He recognized the color. Gold. "No," he snarled. "I killed that legend. I killed it." Gohan didn't transform completely. He wasn't a Super Saiyan yet. He didn't have the control. But he was tapping into that reservoir of limitless potential that lay dormant within him. He launched himself at Frieza. He was faster than Vegeta. He was smaller, harder to hit. He slammed a fist into Frieza's gut, denting the metal plating. Frieza doubled over, actually coughing this time. Gohan followed up with a sledgehammer blow to the head, sending Frieza crashing into the ground. Gohan didn't stop. He screamed, firing blast after blast of Masenko energy down at the tyrant. The ground erupted in a continuous chain of explosions. The boy was a demon of rage. Piccolo watched in awe. He's doing it. He's actually hurting him. But deep down, Piccolo knew it wasn't enough. Rage burned bright, but it burned fast. Gohan was a child. His body couldn't sustain this output. From the smoke, a red beam shot up. It pierced Gohan's shoulder. The boy cried out, his momentum broken. He fell from the sky, crashing hard near Vegeta. Frieza rose from the crater. He was damaged. His armor was dented. Scorch marks covered his face, and his mechanical tail was sparking. But he was smiling. A cruel, twisted smile. "That hurt," Frieza said, dusting himself off. "That actually hurt. You possess the same annoying potential as your father, which is why—" Frieza raised his hand, pointing all 5 fingers at the group. A massive ball of dark energy began to form. It grew larger and larger, blotting out the sun. It was the supernova, the attack he used to destroy planet Vegeta. "I'm done playing," Frieza declared. "I'm going to blow this planet up with all of you on it. Try to survive in the vacuum of space, monkeys." King Cold stood up. "Frieza, wait. The ship is not prepped for takeoff." "I don't care," Frieza screamed, losing his composure. The memory of the Super Saiyan terrified him. He wanted Gohan dead. He wanted Earth dead. He wanted the fear to go away. "Die!" He threw the supernova. The massive sphere of death descended slowly, crackling with black lightning. The heat was intense. The rocks on the ground began to melt. Vegeta looked up at the approaching death. He couldn't move. His body was broken. Gohan was clutching his bleeding shoulder, tears finally streaming down his face as the rage left him, replaced by the terror of a child facing the end of the world. Krillin held the unconscious Tien. They were going to die. This was it. No miracle. No Goku. Just the end. But then, a shadow moved. Piccolo did not run. He did not cower. He looked at the sphere, then at Gohan. He made a calculation. He could not stop the blast, but he could divert it. Or he could buy time. He looked at the spaceship, Frieza's ship. "Krillin!" Piccolo shouted, his voice commanding. "Take Gohan. Get to the ship. Now!" "What?" Krillin yelled over the roar of the energy. "We can't stop that." Piccolo pointed at the supernova. "But we can survive it. The tyrant's ship is reinforced. Get inside." Piccolo didn't wait for them to agree. He grabbed Vegeta by the armor and threw him toward the open hatchway of Frieza's massive ship. He grabbed Gohan and threw him next. Krillin grabbed Tien and flew as fast as he could. Piccolo turned back to the supernova. He had to delay it, just for a second. He gathered every ounce of his life force. He wasn't going to survive this. He knew that. But Gohan had to. Gohan was the only hope. "Live, Gohan," Piccolo whispered. Piccolo flew up to meet the supernova. He placed his hands against the burning surface of the energy ball. His skin began to blister instantly. He roared, pushing back against the weight of a planet killer. He couldn't stop it, but he could slow it down. He poured his energy into a resistance shield, buying the others precious seconds to scramble into the enemy ship. Inside the airlock, Gohan looked back. "Mr. Piccolo, close the door." Piccolo's voice echoed in Gohan's mind, telepathically. "Don't let my sacrifice be in vain. Train. Become what you were meant to be. Avenge us." The hatch of the spaceship hissed shut, sealing Gohan, Vegeta, Krillin, Tien, and the body of Yamcha inside. Outside, Piccolo's arms disintegrated. The supernova swallowed him whole. There was no scream, just a flash of light. The energy ball hit the surface of the Earth. Frieza laughed maniacally as he and King Cold flew up toward the upper atmosphere to avoid the blast. The planet Earth cracked, the crust shattered, magma spewed into the sky. The shockwave tore the continents apart. In a blinding flash of white light, the Earth exploded. The only thing to emerge from the debris, spinning wildly out of control, was Frieza's massive command ship, carrying the last survivors of a dead world into the unknown. The explosion was silent. In the vacuum of space, there was no sound, only light. The white flash blinded the sensors of the massive ship. Inside the metal walls, the survivors felt the floor lurch violently as the shockwave hit the hull. They tumbled across the floor, crashing into control panels and crates. Gohan hit his head against a wall and slid down, his eyes wide open. He stared out of the thick glass window. He saw the white light fade. He saw the magma cooling in the void. He saw the fragments of rock spinning away into the darkness. There was no blue marble anymore. There was no North City, no Mount Paozu, no Capsule Corp. The Earth was just dust. The silence inside the ship was heavy. It was a physical weight that pressed down on their chests. Krillin sat up, coughing. He looked at the window, and then he looked away quickly. He pulled his knees to his chest and buried his face in his hands. He did not make a sound, but his shoulders shook. Beside him lay the body of Yamcha, cold and still. Tien sat against a crate, holding his bleeding shoulder. He looked at the empty space where the planet used to be with a hollow expression. His third eye was closed. Vegeta was the first to stand. He walked to the main console. His armor was cracked, and he was bleeding from a dozen cuts, but his face was hard. He punched a few buttons on the keyboard. The ship stabilizers engaged. The spinning stopped. The artificial gravity hummed back to life. Vegeta looked at the screen. It showed the debris field. He stared at it for a long time. The Prince of Saiyans had no home before, but now he had nowhere to go at all. The Earth was the only place that had offered him a chance to be strong on his own terms. Now it was gone, because they were too weak. "Get up," Vegeta said. His voice was low and rough. No one moved. "I said get up," Vegeta shouted. He turned around and kicked a metal crate across the room. The loud clang made Gohan jump. "We are not safe," Vegeta snarled. "Do you think the explosion killed them? Frieza can survive in space. King Cold can survive in space. They are out there right now. And this is their ship. If we are here when they board, we are dead." Gohan looked up. His eyes were dull. He looked like a doll with the strings cut. "Why does it matter?" Gohan whispered. "Mom is dead. Grandpa is dead. Dende is dead. Everyone is dead. Just let him kill us." Vegeta walked over to Gohan. He grabbed the boy by the front of his shirt and lifted him off the ground. Gohan did not resist. He just dangled there. "Listen to me, you half-breed coward," Vegeta hissed. "Your father died, so you could live. The Namekian died 5 minutes ago so you could live. If you die now, their sacrifice means nothing. Do you want to spit on their graves?" Gohan's lip trembled. A spark of anger returned to his eyes. It was faint, but it was there. Vegeta dropped him. He turned to Krillin and Tien. "We need to move. This is the bridge. It is the first place they will come. We need to go deep into the ship. We need to hide in the engine decks. The radiation there will mask our energy signals. We hide. We heal. And when we see a chance, we steal a long-range pod and leave." Krillin wiped his face. He nodded slowly. He stood up and helped Tien. Vegeta grabbed Yamcha's body. He threw it over his shoulder without a word. They left the bridge, running down the long gray corridors of the enemy ship. 10 minutes later, the airlock cycled. The heavy hiss of pressurization echoed through the upper deck. The inner door slid open. Frieza floated in. He was missing part of his tail again. His mechanical body was scorched black from the explosion. One of his robotic eyes was flickering. King Cold walked in behind him. The tall king brushed dust off his cape. He looked annoyed, but not injured. "They blew up my ship's paint," King Cold muttered. Frieza ignored him. He flew to the bridge. He looked around. He saw the dented crate. He saw the blood on the floor where Tien had been sitting. He smelled the scent of Saiyans. "They are here," Frieza whispered. He ran a finger over the blood on the floor. He tasted it. Human blood. And Saiyan sweat. "Find them," Frieza ordered into the ship's intercom. "Every soldier still alive, listen to me. There are rats on my ship. Find them. Bring them to me. I want to peel them slowly." The hunt began. The ship was enormous, the size of a city. It had hundreds of levels, cargo bays, barracks, and maintenance tunnels. Vegeta knew the layout of Frieza's ships. He had spent his childhood on vessels like this. He led the group down into the bowels of the machine. The air grew hot and stale. The hum of the massive engines was deafening. It vibrated in their teeth. They found a small maintenance room behind a thermal vent. It was cramped and dark, lit only by the red glow of emergency lights. Vegeta dumped Yamcha's body in the corner. He sat down and leaned his head back against the wall. "Suppress your energy," Vegeta ordered. "If you let even a drop of power leak out, they will find us." Days passed in the dark. Time became a blur. They had no food. They drank water from a leaking pipe in the ceiling. The heat was unbearable. Gohan sat in the corner, staring at Yamcha's body. The body was starting to smell, but they could not dispose of it. Opening a hatch would trigger an alarm. They had to live with the dead. Tien's shoulder was infected. The wound from the death beam was black and oozing. Krillin tore strips from his orange shirt to bandage it, but without medicine, Tien was getting weaker. He burned with fever. He muttered in his sleep, apologizing to Chiaotzu. Vegeta did not sleep. He sat by the door, listening. He heard the boots of soldiers marching on the metal grating above them. He heard the scouters beeping. Every time a patrol passed, Vegeta's hand hovered over a key blast, ready to kill. But he never fired. He knew that one fight would bring the whole army down on them. He had to be patient. It was torture for him. His instinct was to attack, but his logic held him back. On the 4th day, the hunger became painful. Krillin looked at Vegeta. "We need food," Krillin whispered. "Tien won't last another day." Vegeta looked at the human. He looked at the weakened state of the group. He knew Krillin was right. If they starved to death, Frieza won. "I will go," Vegeta said. "I know where the ration supplies are. Stay here. Do not move. Do not breathe loud." Vegeta slipped out of the room. He moved like a ghost. He stuck to the shadows, climbing along the pipes on the ceiling. He reached the mess hall on the level above. It was empty, but there were guards at the door. 2 of them. They were low-level grunts, chatting about the explosion. "Did you see the planet pop?" one asked. "It was beautiful." "Yeah, but now we are stuck on patrol duty until we reach Frieza Planet 79, the other grumbled. "I hate the rats. Why don't we just blow up the ship and take the pods?" "Because Lord Frieza would kill us," the first one said. Vegeta dropped from the ceiling behind them. He did not use energy. He used his bare hands. He snapped the first soldier's neck before the alien could blink. The second soldier turned, his eyes widening. Vegeta punched him in the throat, crushing his windpipe. The soldier collapsed, gasping silently. Vegeta finished him with a stomp to the head. He dragged the bodies into a closet. He raided the pantry, grabbing bars of dried meat and jugs of water. He moved to leave, but he paused. He saw a computer terminal on the wall. He needed information. He needed to know where the ship was going. He hacked into the system. It was easy. Frieza's codes had not changed in 20 years. Vegeta read the navigation log. They were heading to Planet 79, a major medical base. They would arrive in 3 days. Once they docked, thousands of soldiers would flood the ship. There would be nowhere to hide. They had to leave before then. Vegeta returned to the maintenance room. He threw the food to Krillin. "Eat," he said. "We are leaving tonight." Krillin forced the dry meat down Tien's throat. Gohan ate mechanically, his eyes still blank. Vegeta explained the plan. "There is a hangar bay on Deck 4, Vegeta said. "It houses the long-range scout ships. We need to steal one. The problem is, the hangar is guarded by the elites. King Cold's personal guard." "We can fight them," Krillin said, trying to sound brave. "In this condition?" Vegeta scoffed. "You can barely stand. But we have no choice. We will use the ventilation shafts to get close. Then we strike hard and fast. We get in the ship, we blast the door, and we jump to hyperspace before Frieza can react." They prepared themselves. Gohan stood up. He tightened his belt. He looked at Yamcha's body. "We can't take him," Vegeta said coldly. "I know," Gohan said. His voice was flat. "I am sorry, Yamcha," Krillin whispered. He touched his friend's cold forehead. They left the room, leaving the body behind in the dark. They climbed through the narrow vents. The metal scraped their skin. It was hot and claustrophobic. They crawled for an hour until they reached the grate overlooking the hangar bay. Vegeta peered through the slats. The hangar was huge. There were dozens of ships, but most were under repair. In the center sat a circular scout ship, fully fueled and prepped. Guarding it were 5 soldiers. They were big. They wore the crest of the Cold Force. Their power levels were high, not Frieza level, but strong enough to be a problem for the weakened Z-fighters. "On my signal," Vegeta whispered. He kicked the grate out. It fell with a clang, alerting the guards. Before they could look up, Vegeta dropped on top of them. He fired a volley of energy blasts, creating a smoke screen. "Attack!" Vegeta yelled. Krillin and Gohan dropped down. Krillin used the solar flare. "Solar flare!" he shouted. A burst of white light blinded the guards. They screamed, clutching their eyes. Vegeta moved with lethal precision. He chopped the head off one guard. He blasted a hole through another. Gohan fought with a wild desperation. He kicked a guard into the wall, denting the metal. He didn't stop. He punched the guard again and again until the alien stopped moving. Tien, who could barely walk, used his telekinesis to throw a crate at the last Godard, knocking him off balance. Vegeta finished him with a beam to the chest. The alarm began to blare. Red lights flashed. A siren wailed through the ship. "Get in the ship!" Vegeta screamed. They scrambled up the ramp of the scout vessel. It was tight inside, designed for 3 people, but they squeezed in. Vegeta jumped into the pilot seat. He slammed his fist onto the ignition button. The engines roared to life. Suddenly, the hangar doors began to close. Heavy blast shields were sliding down. "They are locking us in!" Krillin yelled. Vegeta grabbed the controls. He spun the ship around. He aimed the ship's cannons at the closing doors. He fired. The red lasers hit the heavy metal, but the doors were too thick. They kept closing. From the hallway entrance, a figure appeared. It was Frieza. He was in his hover chair now, looking furious. He raised a finger. "You are not going anywhere, monkeys!" Frieza shrieked. Frieza fired a death beam. It hit the scout ship's shield, shaking the vessel violently. Sparks rained down in the cockpit. Vegeta gritted his teeth. He saw the gap in the doors shrinking. 10 feet, 5 feet. "Hold on!" Vegeta roared. He slammed the throttle forward. The ship shot forward like a bullet. He didn't aim for the gap. He aimed for the control mechanism on the wall next to the door. He fired a massive energy wave from the ship's main cannon right as they flew past. The blast destroyed the door motor. The heavy blast shield jammed, leaving a crooked opening just wide enough for the ship. They scraped through. Metal shrieked against metal. The hull of the scout ship tore, losing paint and armor, but they punched through into the vacuum of space. They were out. Vegeta didn't wait. He punched in random coordinates. He hit the hyperspace lever. The stars outside the window stretched into long lines of light. The ship lurched, and then the sickening feeling of faster-than-light travel washed over them. They were gone. Back in the hangar, Frieza floated by the jammed door. He stared at the empty space where the ship had been. He was shaking with rage. The veins on his forehead bulged. He let out a scream that cracked the glass of the observation deck. "Find them!" Frieza screamed. "Find them, and burn every planet they touch!" On the scout ship, the silence returned. But this time, it was the silence of survival. Krillin slumped against the wall, sliding down to the floor. He was laughing. It was a hysterical, sobbing laugh. "We made it," he choked out. "We actually made it." Tien was unconscious, his face pale. Gohan sat by the window again, watching the blue tunnel of hyperspace. Vegeta checked the console. The ship was damaged. The hyperdrive was leaking coolant. They wouldn't get far. The random coordinates he had punched in were leading them to the edge of the galactic rim, a sector of uncharted space. "We are not safe yet," Vegeta said, his voice flat. "This ship is dying. We will have to land on the first habitable planet we find." "Where are we going?" Gohan asked quietly. "I don't know," Vegeta admitted. "Somewhere where Frieza is not." The journey took 2 weeks. The food ran out on day 10. They rationed the water until their throats were dry and cracked. The air recycler began to fail, making the air thin and hard to breathe. They drifted in and out of consciousness. Then, the proximity alarm beeped. It was a weak, dying sound. Vegeta opened his eyes. He pulled himself to the console. A planet. It was a harsh, reddish-brown world with storm clouds swirling over the surface. The computer identified it as a planet with a breathable atmosphere, but high gravity. "Strap in," Vegeta rasped. "We are crashing." The ship exited hyperspace and plummeted toward the planet. The atmospheric entry was violent. Fire engulfed the view screen. The ship shook so hard that bolts popped out of the walls. Gohan held on to Tien. Krillin held onto his seat. Vegeta fought the controls, trying to keep the nose up. They broke through the clouds. Below them lay a wasteland of jagged rocks and dark oceans. Lightning struck the hull. The engines coughed and died. "We are going down!" Vegeta yelled. The ship slammed into a mountain ridge, sheared off a wing, and spun uncontrollably into a valley. It crashed into a swamp, sliding through the mud and water for a mile before coming to a halt against a massive tree. Steam hissed. The smell of burning wire filled the cabin. Vegeta unbuckled his belt. He kicked the emergency hatch open. He fell out into the mud. He gasped, sucking in the air. It was thick and smelled of sulfur and rot, but it was oxygen. He looked back. Krillin was dragging Tien out. Gohan stumbled out last. They stood in the knee-deep mud, surrounded by alien trees that looked like twisted bones. The sky was a bruised purple. It was raining, a cold, stinging rain. They were alive. They were lost. They were starving. And they were alone in the universe. Vegeta wiped the mud from his face. He looked at the miserable group. He looked at his own trembling hands. He clenched them into fists. "This is where it starts," Vegeta said. "What starts?" Krillin asked weakly. "The revenge," Vegeta said. "We survive here. We get stronger here. And one day, we go back and we kill them all." Gohan looked up at the dark sky. The rain mixed with the dirt on his face. His eyes were no longer blank. They were cold. He nodded once. The four warriors standing in the rain of a hostile world, the wreckage of their escape behind them, and a long, dark road ahead. The first week on the nameless planet was a war against death itself. The gravity was crushing. It felt like walking underwater while wearing a suit made of lead. Every step took effort. Every breath was a labor. The rain never stopped. It was a cold, gray drizzle that turned the ground into a sticky sludge that sucked at their boots. There was no sun, only a shifting haze of purple and gray clouds that occasionally lit up with silent lightning. They huddled inside the wreckage of the scout ship, shivering and wet. The heater was broken. The food was gone. Tien was dying. The infection in his shoulder had spread to his chest. His skin was burning hot, and his breathing was shallow and rattling. He did not wake up. He just lay there, sweating and muttering names of people who were already dead. Krillin sat beside him, wringing out a rag soaked in rainwater. Krillin looked old. The lines on his face had deepened. He looked at Vegeta, who was sitting by the open hatch, staring out into the rain. "We need medicine," Krillin said. His voice was cracked. "There is no medicine," Vegeta replied without turning around. "Then he will die," Krillin said. Vegeta stood up. He walked over and looked down at Tien. He looked at the three-eyed warrior with no pity, only calculation. "If he dies, we burn the body, so the smell does not attract predators," Vegeta said. "If he lives, he fights. Those are the choices." Krillin stood up, his fists clenched. "You do not care at all, do you? He is your ally." "I have no allies," Vegeta snapped. "I have tools. If a tool breaks, it is useless." Vegeta turned back to the rain, but he did not stay inside. He stepped out into the mud. He launched himself into the air, struggling against the heavy gravity. He flew into the dark forest of twisted trees. He was hunting, not for medicine, but for something that could keep them alive. He returned an hour later, dragging a massive carcass. It was a six-legged beast with thick, armored skin and blue blood. He threw it down near the ship. "Eat," Vegeta ordered. "The blood of these beasts is full of natural antibodies. It is how they survive this bacteria-filled swamp. If the three-eyed one drinks it, he might live. If not, he was too weak anyway." Krillin hesitated, looking at the blue sludge. Then he grabbed a metal cup. He collected the blood and forced it down Tien's throat. It was bitter and foul, but an hour later, Tien's fever broke. He opened his eyes. He was weak, but he was back from the edge. Survival became the only religion. They stripped the ship of everything useful. Metal plates became roofs for a shelter dug into the side of a cliff. Wires became snares for small animals. The ship's reactor core was carefully removed and used to generate a small heat field, keeping them warm in the freezing nights. They ate the blue meat of the swamp beasts. It tasted like copper and ash, but it made them strong. The high gravity forced their bodies to adapt. Muscles grew denser. Bones grew thicker. Vegeta took charge of the training. It was not a request. It was a mandate. On the 10th day, he dragged Gohan out of the shelter. Gohan was still grieving. He was quiet, his eyes always looking at the ground. Vegeta kicked him into the mud. "Fight me," Vegeta growled. Gohan shook his head. No, I don't want to fight. Vegeta kicked him again, harder. The blow sent Gohan sliding through the sludge. Frieza does not care what you want, Vegeta shouted. Frieza is out there. He is laughing. He is conquering. Do you think crying for your father will save you? Your father was a fool. He showed mercy. He died. Do you want to join him? Gohan stood up slowly. He wiped the mud from his face. He looked at Vegeta. I want to kill him, Gohan whispered. Vegeta smiled. It was a jagged, dangerous smile. Good. Then stop acting like a child. The training was brutal. Vegeta did not hold back. He beat Gohan until the boy could not stand, and then he forced him to get up again. He attacked Krillin and Tien with energy blasts, forcing them to dodge or be incinerated. He made them carry boulders up the vertical cliffs of the valley. He made them fight the swamp beasts with their bare hands. There was no rest. There were no Sundays off. There was only pain, and the slow, grinding increase of power. Months turned into years. The timeline of the universe moved on without them, but they were stuck in a time capsule of constant violence. 5 years passed. The landscape of the valley had changed. It was scarred by thousands of craters. The trees were gone, blown away by stray energy blasts. Gohan was no longer a child. He was 16 years old, but he looked older. He had grown tall, his shoulders broad and thick with muscle. His hair was long and wild, tied back with a strip of cloth from his old orange guy, which was now just rags. He wore armor made from the hide of the swamp beasts and the metal of the ship. A long scar ran down his left cheek, a gift from a training session with Vegeta. Gohan stood on top of a stone pillar, meditating. He did not sit. He stood on one leg, balancing perfectly in the 20 times gravity. Rain lashed against his skin, but he did not flinch. His energy was completely suppressed. To a scouter, he would not exist. Below him, Krillin and Tien were sparring. They had changed too. Krillin was leaner, his movements stripped of any wasted motion. He had learned that he could not match the raw power of the Saiyans, so he mastered precision. He used the Destructo Disc not as a finishing move, but as a shield, spinning it around his body to deflect attacks. Tien had developed a new technique. He used his life energy to create tangible clones that could fight independently, allowing him to attack from 4 angles at once. They were stronger than they had ever been on Earth. The gravity had turned the humans into weapons. But Vegeta was the monster among them. The prince sat on the highest peak of the mountain range. He had not achieved the Super Saiyan form. Every day he screamed at the sky. Every day he pushed himself to the brink of death. He had come close. He had felt the golden flicker. But it always slipped away. The frustration was a poison in his blood. He had become cold, silent, and terrifyingly efficient. He had stopped talking about his pride. He only talked about the kill. Vegeta sensed something. He opened his eyes. He looked up at the purple clouds. A sonic boom echoed across the valley. Gohan opened his eyes at the same moment. He looked up. A ship. It was not a scout ship. It was a cruiser. It was large, circular, and painted with the emblem of the Frieza Force. It descended slowly, burning through the atmosphere. It was looking for something. Perhaps it had detected the faint energy signature of their heater. Perhaps it was just a survey mission for minerals. It did not matter. Vegeta stood up. He adjusted his gloves. A cruel light returned to his eyes. Finally, Vegeta whispered. He jumped from the peak. He landed in the valley floor with a thud that shook the ground. Gohan landed beside him a second later. Krillin and Tien joined them. They stood in a line, 4 warriors forged in hell, waiting for the visitors. The ship landed in the swamp, crushing the mud and rock. Steam hissed from the landing gear. A ramp lowered. A squad of soldiers marched out. There were 20 of them. They were not the weak grunts they had fought on Namek. These were elites. They wore polished white armor. They carried heavy blasters. Leading them was a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms and a scouter that wrapped around his head. The alien commander scanned the group. He laughed. "Look at this, men," the commander said. "Savages. We found a few castaways living in the mud. Look at their rags." The soldiers chuckled. They aimed their weapons. The commander tapped his scouter. "Power levels are suppressed. They are hiding their strength. How cute. Identify yourselves, filth. This planet is now property of the Universal Frieza Empire." Vegeta stepped forward. He did not take a fighting stance. He just walked toward them. "The Universal Frieza Empire?" Vegeta asked softly. "Is that what he calls it now?" The commander frowned. "You know the Emperor?" "I know him intimately," Vegeta said. "Tell me, is he still alive?" The commander scoffed. "Alive? Lord Frieza is a god. He rules the entire galaxy. He has crushed the rebellion. He has destroyed the Saiyan remnant. He is immortal, and you will bow to his banner, or you will be vaporized." Vegeta stopped 10 feet away from the commander. He looked at the soldiers. He looked at the ship. "Thank you for the update," Vegeta said, "and thank you for the ride." "Kill him!" the commander shouted. The soldiers fired. 20 heavy blasters unleashed a storm of blue energy. The ground where Vegeta stood erupted in a massive explosion. Mud and steam flew into the air. The soldiers kept firing for 10 seconds, pouring enough energy to level a city. The commander raised his hand. "Cease fire. Check for the body." The smoke cleared. Vegeta was gone. The commander blinked. "What? Behind you?" Gohan said. The commander spun around. Vegeta was standing behind the squad of soldiers. He had moved so fast that not even the scouters had registered it. Vegeta had his arms crossed. He looked bored. "Is that the best the new Empire has to offer?" Vegeta asked. The soldiers panicked. They spun around to shoot, but Vegeta simply extended his right hand. "Bang!" Vegeta whispered. An invisible shockwave of ki exploded from his palm. It didn't just hit the soldiers, it atomized them. 5 soldiers vanished instantly, their armor turning to dust. The remaining soldiers screamed and scattered. "Leave them to us!" Krillin shouted. Krillin and Tien moved. It was a blur of motion. Krillin slid under a blaster shot, jumped into the air, and threw 2 destructo discs. They sliced through the tanks of 2 soldiers, cutting them in half. Tien appeared in the middle of a group of 3. He didn't use energy blasts. He used his fists. He struck with the force of a pile driver. 1 punch to the chest, and the alien's armor shattered, the ribs underneath turning to powder. The commander backed away, terrified. He tapped his scouter frantically. "Base! Base! This is Scout Unit 4. We have encountered Gohan landed in front of him." The commander froze. He looked up at the scarred face of the young Saiyan. He saw eyes that were blacker than the void of space. "Please," the commander begged. "I surrender. Take the ship. Just let me go." Gohan looked at the alien. He remembered Namek. He remembered the pleas of the Namekian villagers. He remembered Frieza laughing. "No," Gohan said. Gohan punched the commander in the stomach. The alien doubled over, gagging. Gohan grabbed him by the head and kneed him in the face. The commander flew backward, crashing into the landing strut of the ship. He slumped down, bleeding and broken. Gohan walked over to him. The commander looked up with one swollen eye. Who are you?" the commander wheezed. "I am the ghost of the earth," Gohan said. Gohan raised his hand. A yellow blast of energy vaporized the commander. The silence returned to the valley. It was over in less than a minute. The elite squad was dead. The Z-fighters stood among the bodies, breathing calmly. They were not winded. They had barely broken a sweat. Vegeta walked up the ramp of the ship. He stepped over the body of a guard. He entered the bridge. The controls were modern, sleek, and familiar. He sat in the captain's chair. He began to interface with the computer. Krillin, Tien, and Gohan followed him in. They looked around the clean, sterile interior of the ship. It felt strange after 5 years of living in a cave. The lights were too bright. Vegeta was reading the data streams. His face grew darker with every line of text. "What is it?" Tien asked. "It is worse than we thought," Vegeta said quietly. "Frieza has not just been sitting idle. After he destroyed Earth, he launched a campaign of total subjugation. He hunted down every potential threat. He destroyed the Yardrats. He destroyed the metamorphic races. He has built a second capital on a planet called New Vegeta." "New Vegeta?" Gohan asked, his voice tightening. "A mockery," Vegeta spat. "He uses it as a trophy room. He keeps the skulls of his enemies there. And," Vegeta paused, "he keeps a collection of artifacts." Vegeta turned the screen toward them. It showed a list of high-priority items stored in the vault on New Vegeta. Item number 1, the Namekian Book of Legends. Item number 2, the Sword of Trunks, labeled as Unknown Future Tech, recovered from debris. Item number 3, 7 orange orbs found on a small rogue asteroid in the Namek system. The Dragon Balls. Krillin gasped. "They survived?" Tien asked. "How?" "The Namekian Elder," Vegeta mused. "Guru. Before he died, he must have cast them into space, or perhaps the explosion of Namek was not as total as we thought. If the Dragon Balls are there, then we can wish everyone back," Gohan said. His eyes widened. "We can bring back Dad. We can bring back Piccolo." Vegeta turned the chair around. "Do not get your hopes up, boy. Frieza has them, and he is likely trying to figure out how to use them. If he gains immortality, it is over. Forever." "We have to go there," Gohan said. "Now." Vegeta nodded. "Yes, we go to New Vegeta, but we do not go as thieves. We go as an army." "An army?" Krillin asked. "There are 4 of us." Vegeta smirked. He pressed a button on the console. A holographic map of the galaxy appeared. It showed red zones everywhere. Frieza's territory. But there were small pockets of blue. Prisons. Labor camps. "Frieza has enslaved thousands of warriors," Vegeta said. "He keeps them in the deepest pits of the galaxy. We are going to break them out. We are going to start a riot that will burn the galaxy down. We will not just kill Frieza. We will dismantle his empire brick by brick." Vegeta's plan was madness. It was suicide. But looking at the map, looking at the overwhelming odds, the humans and the half Saiyan realized it was the only way. They couldn't just sneak in. They had to create a war. Vegeta piloted the ship into the air. The engines roared, a sound of freedom they had not heard in years. The ship broke through the purple clouds. The sun of the system, a white dwarf star, blinded them for a moment. They left the gravity of the Hell Planet behind. As they entered hyperspace, Vegeta set the course for the nearest prison planet. It was a mining colony called Gatless. "Get some sleep," Vegeta said. "You will need it. Tomorrow, the slaughter begins." Gohan went to the crew quarters. He found a mirror in the bathroom. He looked at his reflection. He touched the scar on his face. He didn't recognize himself. The innocent boy who wanted to be a scholar was dead. In the mirror, he saw a warrior who was ready to bathe the galaxy in blood to get his family back. He sat on the bunk and closed his eyes. He tried to remember Goku's voice. It was faint, like a distant radio signal. "Hold on, Dad," Gohan whispered. "I'm coming." The ship streaked through the stars, a tiny needle of vengeance aimed at the heart of a galactic titan. The Z-Fighters leaving their exile, no longer survivors, but aggressors, heading into the dark to start a war that would shake the universe. The assault on the prison planet. Gatless began at midnight. The stolen cruiser dropped out of hyperspace directly above the main generator complex. There was no warning. Vegeta did not believe in warnings anymore. He sat at the weapons console and fired a full spread of photon torpedoes. The generator exploded in a mushroom cloud of blue fire. The defense grid of the planet went dark. The slave collars on the prisoners deactivated instantly. Down in the mines, 10,000 prisoners looked up as the lights failed. They heard the boom of the explosion. Then they heard the voice of the Saiyan prince over the emergency broadcast system. "Listen to me, scum. The gates are open. The guards are blind. If you want freedom, kill everyone in a uniform. If you want revenge, follow my ship. If you are weak, stay in your holes and die." The prison erupted. It was not a battle. It was a riot of pure hatred. The prisoners were warriors from 100 conquered worlds. They had been starved and beaten for years. Now, they had the dark. They used pickaxes, rocks, and their bare teeth. The Frieza Force guards were overwhelmed by a tidal wave of bodies. Vegeta, Gohan, Krillin, and Tien descended into the main courtyard. They did not help the prisoners. They only targeted the heavy weapon turrets. Gohan moved like a phantom. He tore the barrels off tanks with his bare hands. Krillin sliced through watchtowers with his energy discs. Tien used his solar flare to blind entire battalions, leaving them helpless against the mob. By dawn, Gatlas was burning. The snow was black with soot and blood. The surviving guards were dead. The prisoners gathered in the main square, looking at the 4 warriors who had fallen from the sky. They were a terrifying sight. Vegeta stood on top of a piled mountain of destroyed tanks. He looked down at the army of criminals and rebels. "Who owns a ship?" Vegeta shouted. Hundreds of hands went up. The spaceport was full of confiscations. "Take them," Vegeta ordered. "We are going to New Vegeta. We are going to the capital. You will be the first wave. You will draw their fire. You will die so we can get inside. In exchange, you get a chance to see the Emperor bleed. Do you accept?" A roar went up from the crowd. It was a sound of madness. They did not care about living. They only wanted to bite the hand that had held the leash. The fleet that left Gatlas was a ragtag swarm of stolen freighters, mining barges, and patrol ships. It looked like a cloud of angry hornets. Vegeta led them in the cruiser. He set the course for New Vegeta. The journey took 2 days. In that time, Gohan sat in the meditation chamber. He was sharpening his mind. He knew this was the end. One way or another, the long nightmare was about to close. He thought about his mother. He thought about the picnics in the mountains. He locked those memories away in a steel box in his heart. He could not afford to be soft. Not yet. They arrived at New Vegeta. The planet was a fortress. It was ringed by orbital defense platforms and surrounded by a blockade of star destroyers. The alarm klaxons blared across the system as the rebel fleet dropped out of warp. "Attack!" Vegeta screamed into the comms. The rebel ships didn't break. They accelerated. It was a suicide charge. The mining barges rammed into the star destroyers. Freighters loaded with explosives detonated against the orbital shields. The space above the planet turned into a fireworks display of death. The Frieza Force was caught off guard by the sheer insanity of the tactic. They were used to fighting armies that feared death. They were not ready for an army that welcomed it. In the chaos, Vegeta's cruiser slipped through the defense grid. He flew low, skimming the atmosphere, dodging the turbo-laser fire. He aimed for the massive spire in the center of the capital city, the Imperial Palace. "We are going in hot," Vegeta yelled. "Brace for impact." He didn't bother landing. He crashed the cruiser directly into the side of the palace. The hull screeched and crumpled, tearing through 10 layers of reinforced concrete and steel. The ship came to a halt in a grand hallway, buried in rubble. The hatch blew open. The Z-fighters leaped out into the smoke. They were inside. Soldiers came running down the hall. Elites. The Ginyu force was gone, dead on Namek. But Frieza had recruited new monsters. A squad of reptilian warriors charged, firing energy lances. "Don't stop," Vegeta commanded. He didn't even slow down. He ran straight through the soldiers. He clotheslined the first one, taking his head off. He blasted the second one point blank in the chest. Gohan ran on the walls, jumping over the enemy fire, raining down death with rapid-fire Masenko blasts. Krillin and Tien covered the rear, ensuring no one could flank them. They reached the massive golden doors of the throne room. Vegeta blasted the hinges. The doors fell inward with a thunderous crash. The room was vast. The floor was polished obsidian. Pillars of white marble rose to a ceiling painted with a mural of Frieza destroying planets. At the far end, on a floating throne, sat Frieza. He was sipping a glass of wine. Standing next to him was King Cold. Behind them, on a pedestal, sat the 7 Dragon Balls. They were glowing faintly. Frieza set his glass down. He did not look surprised. He looked delighted. "The rats have arrived," Frieza said. "And look, you brought friends to die outside. How thoughtful." Vegeta stepped over the debris. He walked to the center of the room. He was shaking, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From hate. "It ends today, Frieza," Vegeta said. Frieza stood up. He walked down the steps of the dais. His mechanical tail clicked against the stone. He looked different than on Namek. His cybernetics had been upgraded. His chest was thicker. His aura was heavier. "You still dream, Vegeta," Frieza said. "It is adorable. You escaped my ship. You hid in the mud. You gathered a few broken toys. And you think this makes you a threat?" King Cold laughed. He uncrossed his giant arms. "I will handle the prince, son. I want to see if the monkeys have learned any new tricks." Cold charged. He was fast for his size. He swung a massive fist at Vegeta. Vegeta didn't dodge. He caught the fist. The ground beneath Vegeta cracked and shattered, but he didn't move an inch. Cold's eyes widened. "What?" Cold gasped. Vegeta looked up. His eyes were burning. "I lived in 20 times gravity for 5 years, you oversized lizard. Your punches feel like feathers." Vegeta twisted Cold's hand. The sound of breaking bones echoed in the hall. Cold screamed. Vegeta didn't let go. He pulled Cold down and drove his knee into the king's face. Purple blood sprayed. Cold staggered back, clutching his broken nose. Vegeta didn't give him space. He attacked. It was a flurry of violence that defied logic. Vegeta was smaller, but he hit like a meteor. He punched Cold in the gut, the ribs, the throat. He was dissecting the king. Cold tried to fire an energy wave, but Vegeta slapped his hand aside and kicked him in the knee, shattering the joint. King Cold fell to one knee. He looked at Frieza. "Son, help me." Frieza just watched. He looked bored. "If you cannot beat a monkey father, you do not deserve to be king." Vegeta grabbed Cold by his horns. He pulled the king's head down. "This is for my father," Vegeta whispered. Vegeta fired a beam of energy directly into Cold's ear. The beam exited the other side of the king's skull. King Cold's eyes rolled back. He slumped forward, dead. Vegeta shoved the body aside. He panted, wiping the blood from his gloves. He looked at Frieza. "You are next." Frieza clapped slowly. The metallic sound rang out. "Impressive," Frieza said. "You killed my father. You have actually become strong. I suppose I should take this seriously." Frieza flared his energy. The palace shook. The glass in the windows shattered. The pressure was immense. It was far beyond what he had shown on Earth. Gohan stepped up beside Vegeta. "We fight him together." "No," Vegeta said. "He is mine." Vegeta charged. He was confident now. He had killed a king. He could kill the sun. He launched a barrage of energy blasts, creating a wall of smoke. He dove through it, aiming a punch at Frieza's face. Frieza didn't catch the fist. He vanished. Vegeta punched empty air. He spun around. Frieza was standing behind him. "Too slow," Frieza whispered. Frieza's tail whipped out. It wasn't a blunt strike. The tip of the mechanical tail was a blade. It stabbed through Vegeta's armor. It went through his stomach. Vegeta gasped. His eyes went wide. He looked down at the metal spike protruding from his gut. Frieza lifted Vegeta into the air with his tail. He brought the prince face to face. "Did you really think training would be enough?" Frieza asked softly. "I am a prodigy, Vegeta. I was born with power you cannot imagine. You trained for 5 years? I had my scientists upgrade my core reactor 3 days ago. You are obsolete." Frieza flicked his tail. Vegeta was thrown across the room. He smashed into a pillar, collapsing in a heap of blood and dust. He tried to stand, but his legs failed him. He coughed up red liquid. "Vegeta!" Krillin yelled. Krillin and Tien jumped in. They knew they couldn't win, but they had to buy time. Krillin threw a Destructo disc. Frieza swatted it away with his hand. It sliced a deep gash in the wall, but Frieza's armor was too tough. Tien used the tri-beam. "Use the Neo tri-beam!" Tien shouted. He poured his life force into the blast. The square tunnel of energy slammed into Frieza, pushing him down into the floor. "Run, Gohan! Get the Dragon Balls!" Tien screamed. Gohan ran. He sprinted toward the pedestal. He had to summon the dragon. It was their only chance. Frieza roared. He flew up through the tri-beam, ignoring the damage. He looked at the humans. Annoying insects. Frieza pointed a finger. A death beam shot out. It went through Tien's chest. Tien froze. The light faded from his 3 eyes. He fell backward, dead before he hit the ground. "Tien!" Krillin screamed. Frieza pointed the finger at Krillin. "Goodbye, Bald One." "No!" Gohan abandoned the Dragon Balls. He flew at Frieza. He kicked the tyrant in the head, knocking his aim off. The death beam missed Krillin, searing his cheek. Gohan stood between Frieza and his friends. He was shaking. He looked at Tien's body. He looked at Vegeta bleeding out. He looked at Krillin's terrified face. "Stop it," Gohan said. His voice was trembling. "Stop killing everyone." Frieza floated back. He wiped a smudge of dust from his face. He smiled. It was the smile of a nightmare. "Why should I stop?" Frieza asked. "It is so much fun. And you are just like your father. Soft, weak, emotional." Frieza vanished. He appeared in front of Gohan. He punched Gohan in the gut. Gohan folded. Frieza grabbed Gohan by the hair and slammed his face into the floor. He stomped on Gohan's head. "Your father begged for mercy too," Frieza lied. "He cried like a baby before I turned him into dust. And now I'm going to kill your little bald friend, and I am going to make you watch." Frieza raised his hand toward Krillin. Krillin was paralyzed with fear. He couldn't move. "Say goodbye, Gohan." Gohan looked at Krillin. He saw the fear. He saw the inevitable death. Something snapped. It wasn't a sound. It was a feeling. A dam breaking in his soul. The sorrow, the loss, the 5 years of rain and mud, the death of Piccolo, the death of Goku, the death of Tien. It all boiled over. It was no longer sadness. It was pure, white-hot wrath. A shockwave exploded from Gohan's body. It threw Frieza backward. The floor of the palace disintegrated. The ceiling blew off, revealing the battle in the sky above. Gohan stood up. His black hair stood on end. It flashed gold, once, twice. Then it stayed. A golden aura erupted around him, violent and jagged. His eyes turned from black to teal green. His muscles swelled. The scar on his face seemed to glow. He wasn't the boy anymore. He was the Super Saiyan. Frieza stared. His mechanical eye whirred, trying to read the power level. It spiked. It kept rising. It broke the scouter. "No," Frieza whispered. "Not again." Gohan looked at Frieza. There was no mercy in his eyes. There was only death. "I am going to kill you," Gohan said. His voice was 2 tones, a human voice layered with the roar of a monster. Gohan vanished. He didn't move fast. He teleported. He appeared in front of Frieza. Frieza threw a punch. Gohan caught it. Gohan squeezed. Frieza's mechanical hand crumpled like tinfoil. Frieza screamed. Gohan didn't stop. He ripped the mechanical arm off Frieza's body. Oil and fluid sprayed. Frieza stared at his stump in horror. "That is for Tien," Gohan said. Gohan kicked Frieza in the chest. The armor shattered. Frieza flew backward, crashing through the throne. Gohan followed him. He grabbed Frieza by the tail. He spun him around and slammed him into the floor, again and again. It was a brutal, animalistic beating. Frieza tried to fire a blast. Gohan slapped it away. Gohan punched Frieza in the face, breaking his jaw. He punched him again, shattering his robotic eye. "You are nothing!" Gohan roared. Frieza crawled backward. He was broken. He was terrified. He looked at the Golden Warrior and saw Goku. But this wasn't Goku. Goku had given him a chance. This boy wanted to erase him. Frieza panicked. He looked at the ground. He looked at the planet core beneath them. "If I die, you all die!" Frieza shrieked. Frieza formed a ball of energy in his remaining hand. He didn't throw it at Gohan. He threw it at the floor. He threw it at the planet. Gohan saw it coming, but he was too far away to catch it. The ball hit the ground. It burrowed deep. The planet began to shake. Red cracks appeared in the obsidian floor. Magma started to bubble up. 5 minutes! Frieza laughed, coughing up blood. "The core is destabilized. This world will be dust in 5 minutes. You win nothing." Gohan looked at the crumbling world. He looked at the Dragon Balls on the pedestal. They were sliding off as the floor tilted. "Krillin!" Gohan shouted. "The Dragon Balls!" Krillin snapped out of his shock. He scrambled toward the balls. He gathered them up. They were heavy. He dragged them to a flat section of the floor. Vegeta was crawling toward them. He was holding his intestines in with one hand. He was pale, dying. "Summon him," Vegeta wheezed. Krillin stood over the balls. He didn't know the password. "Dende told us. On the ship." Krillin stammered. He tried to remember. The Namekian password. "Takarapto Poporunga. Pupirito Paro." Krillin screamed. The sky turned black. Lightning struck the palace. The ceiling melted away. A massive dragon, Porunga, rose from the balls. He was huge, muscular, and terrifying. He looked down at the burning palace. "I await your wish," the dragon boomed in Namekian. But Krillin didn't speak Namekian. Vegeta grabbed Krillin's ankle. "He speaks common. Now." The Elder upgraded him. Krillin looked at the dragon. He looked at the dying planet. The explosions were getting louder. The roof was falling in. "You have 3 wishes," Porunga stated. Frieza screamed. "No!" He fired a beam at the dragon. Gohan intercepted it. He took the blast on his chest. He didn't flinch. He walked toward Frieza. "Make the wish, Krillin!" Gohan yelled. Krillin looked at Vegeta. He looked at Tien's body. He looked at the sky where the battle was raging. "Dragon!" Krillin shouted. "Please, restore the planet Earth! Bring it back to how it was before Frieza destroyed it!" "Your wish is granted," Porunga said. His eyes glowed red. Far away in the solar system where only dust remained, rocks began to swirl. Gravity pulled them together. Magma cooled. Oceans formed. Clouds gathered. In seconds, the blue marble was whole again. "Second wish," Porunga boomed. Gohan was beating Frieza into the ground. Frieza was a broken mess of wires and flesh. Krillin thought fast. "Bring back everyone Frieza killed. Everyone on Namek. Everyone on Earth. Everyone here." "Your wish is granted," Porunga said. Tien's eyes opened. He gasped, sitting up. Across the galaxy, millions of souls returned to their bodies. On the restored Earth, cities reappeared. People woke up in their beds, confused. But on New Vegeta, the ground was splitting. The core was detonating. "Last wish," Porunga warned. "The planet is dying." Vegeta coughed. He looked at Gohan. Gohan had Frieza by the throat. Gohan was charging a final blast. "Transport us," Vegeta whispered. "Transport us all. To Earth." Krillin nodded. "Dragon. Transport everyone on this planet except Frieza to Earth. Your wish is granted." Frieza's eyes widened. "No! Don't leave me!" Gohan looked at the tyrant one last time. "Burn," Gohan said. He released the blast. A massive Kamehameha that engulfed Frieza completely. The tyrant screamed as his body was disintegrated cell by cell. There was nothing left. Then, the light took them. Gohan, Krillin, Vegeta, Tien, and the thousands of prisoners in the fleet vanished. New Vegeta exploded. It was a silent, blinding flash in the dark sector. The Empire of Cold was gone. They appeared in a grassy field. The sky was blue. The sun was warm. Birds were singing. Gohan fell to his knees. The golden light faded. His hair turned black. He fell forward into the soft green grass. He smelled the flowers. They were home. Vegeta lay on his back, staring at the clouds. His wound was still there, but Dende, who had just appeared nearby with the other Namekians, was already running toward him. Piccolo stood on a nearby hill, his arms crossed, looking at Gohan with pride and sorrow. And then, a confused voice spoke from behind them. "Hey, why is everyone crying? Did I miss lunch?" Gohan froze. He slowly lifted his head. He turned around. Standing there, scratching the back of his head with a halo floating above his messy black hair, was Goku. He had been dead, so the wish to revive everyone had brought him back. But since he had died a year ago, he was still just a spirit for one more day, until the dragon's power fully processed his physical resurrection. No, the wish was to revive everyone. Goku was alive. He blinked. He looked at Gohan's scar. He looked at Vegeta's wound. He looked at the tears in his son's eyes. "Gohan?" Goku asked softly. "You got so big." Gohan didn't speak. He couldn't. He just ran. He tackled his father, burying his face in the orange guy. He screamed. He cried. He let out 5 years of pain. Goku held him. He looked at Piccolo. He looked at the others. He saw the haunted look in their eyes. He realized that while he was gone, they had walked through hell. "I'm here, son," Goku whispered. "I'm here." The nightmare was over, but the scars would remain forever. The peace that returned to Earth was perfect on the surface. The cities were rebuilt exactly as they had been. The mountains were tall and green. The ocean was blue. If a stranger looked at the world, they would never know that it had been turned into dust and floating rocks just hours before. The Dragon Balls had done their work well. But the magic could only fix stone and flesh. It could not fix the minds of the men who had lived in the dark for 5 years. Gohan sat on the roof of his house. He was wearing his old scholar clothes, but they felt tight on his shoulders. The fabric scratched his skin. He felt suffocated. Down in the kitchen, he could hear his mother laughing. She was cooking a feast. She was happy. She had her husband back. She had her son back. To her, the 5 years of hell had never happened. She had died instantly when the planet exploded, and she had woken up today as if from a long dream. She did not remember the fear. She did not remember the mud. But Gohan remembered. He looked at his hands. They were clean now, but he could still smell the copper scent of the blue blood from the swamp beasts. He could still feel the crushing weight of the heavy gravity. He touched the scar on his cheek. It was a white line against his skin. It was the only physical proof that the nightmare had been real. Goku floated up to sit beside him. The father looked at the son. Goku smiled, but his eyes were sad. He had tried to spar with Gohan earlier that morning. He had expected a friendly match. Instead, Gohan had moved with a lethal efficiency that chilled Goku to the bone. Gohan did not fight for fun anymore. He fought to kill. Goku realized that he had missed his son's childhood. He had missed the gentle years. The boy sitting next to him was a stranger with the eyes of a veteran soldier. "I'm sorry I wasn't there," Goku said softly. "It doesn't matter," Gohan replied. His voice was deep and calm. We won. Vegeta stood on a cliff far away, watching the sunset. He had not gone back to the Capsule Corp gravity chamber. He did not scream at the sky. He was quiet. He had achieved the strength he wanted, but not in the way he expected. He looked at the scars on his own body. He thought about the moment he killed King Cold. He thought about Gohan tearing Frieza apart. For the first time in his life, the Prince of Saiyans felt a strange emotion. It was not pride, it was respect. He knew he was not the strongest anymore, and for once, he was content to just be alive. The world was safe, the tyrant was dead, the Empire was gone, but the innocence of the Z-Fighters was buried on a nameless planet in a lost sector of space. They would protect the Earth, but they would never again fight for the thrill of the battle. They would fight because they knew what happened when they lost. Gohan looked at the stars one last time, then turned back to the warmth of the house. The scholar was gone, the warrior remained, and the universe would never dare to touch his home again.